see it when it's transcribing and it distracts me. Okay, so now we're recording. All right. Well, let's give it a minute. So, all right, so for the benefit of those watching the recording, Michael, Michael, tell me if I understood you correctly. You're saying there's not a lot of information out there about the ethics to your conduct while you are doing research?
Yes, yes, yes. Especially that is for what the university is giving. Probably is just two sources of
Okay.
reading materials.
Okay,
Yes.
so I would say if you want more information, I would go to a university that has a master's or doctoral program, because they're probably gonna have an IRB, an internal review board, but they'll have information on how to conduct yourself. But what we want you to understand is you have to think about ethics. So as a teacher, I'm working with these kids every day. I know them. I know what my intervention is. Why do I have to stop and think about, no, am I being ethical? Because we don't do that every day. We just are ethical. But in research, ethics can, or being unethical can skew our results. So just for example, if you are implementing your intervention, so I've done a study on the number of the frequency of disruptive behavior after my students come back from recess. And my hypothesis is, if I read to my students for 10 minutes after recess, there will be fewer disruptions. All right. So I implement this study, and which really I'm just trying to see if it works. And while I'm reading, there's some disruptive behavior, and I say, get out of my classroom, and I kick out the kid. Well, the disruptive behavior was decreased because I only had one disruption. Well, yeah, because you kicked the kid out, so he wasn't able to disrupt. That's not ethical. Everything has to be controlled, and it has to follow exactly what you said you were going to do. You did not say you're going to remove kids who are disruptive. So if you now are removing kids that are disruptive, you've gone outside of your plan. That's not ethical, because now you're changing the research after you've already said in your proposal, this is what I'm going to do. Now, for purposes of a master's degree, you can change your study with the approval of your instructor, because that's what we're trying to teach you, what will work and what will not. So we wouldn't say, nope, yeah, I know you've recognized that this is not going to happen, right? But you have to do it because that's what you said. That wouldn't happen. We would say, sure, let's back up a little bit. What do you think you want to try? Okay, now you're going to have to do some rewriting. So last term I had a student who had designed his study around, he's a classical music expert, I don't know, professional. Anyway, he taught orchestra to, I believe, middle school students. So his study was designed to be, I didn't quite understand it because it's very technical, but something to the effect of, if I teach them using this method, they will learn how to play the music faster. I think was the deal. Well, he got all the way to week 6 of his final class, 5910. And he had been implementing the intervention, and the school principal, for some reason, pulled the study and said, you can't continue. He didn't have his data. So, I mean, the principal wouldn't even let him finish up. It's like, you cannot proceed any further on this study. So he wrote me in a little bit of a panic, and I said, well, can you use the teachers? Can you just have a professional development seminar on this teaching method and then see what they think about it? I mean, it was much simpler, much less complex, and much less valuable, really. But that's okay. I just wanted to see if he could design, conduct, and analyze a study. And he did a superb job. It took him an extra 3 weeks after he would have graduated, so he had to delay his graduation, but he did it, and he did a great job. So absolutely, something like in going back to, don't change your study once you've got that proposal approved. You can't insert or take away or change in any way what you said you were going to do for your intervention. That's not ethical, because then, like I said, oh, I have fewer disruptions. Well, yeah, because you kicked out the kid. So now I don't know if this reading to my students after recess is really valuable, because I didn't prove anything, for sure. So that's one thing we want you to consider is, during your study, are you aligned with what you said you were going to do? Second part to ethics is, do you have bias? So if you're conducting your study, so I'm reading, and I think it's going to work. And, quite frankly, it probably will, at least for a little bit. But I think it's going to work, so I do something to make it work. Again, not pulling the kid out who's disruptive, but maybe letting the kids draw while I read. Okay, that's okay if I said I was going to do that, but I can't just let them draw, because now, are they less disruptive because they're drawing during class, or are they less disruptive because reading to them helped them calm down? I don't know, because I made what I wanted to happen. I made it the outcome. I really want this to work. I'm going to make it work. Again, I don't know if reading to them is valuable or not, because I wasn't strict with my plan. I figured out how to make something happen. And you can do that in your proposal too. And that's one of the things I'm looking for. When I'm looking at your intervention and every step, I'm thinking, now, is there any way this could be biased? Is there any way that this study is being designed to work out the way he wants it to? I'm not only looking for, this is not going to work, buddy, I'm sorry, it's not going to work, but I'm also looking for, is there a way that this could work because of the way it's designed? Okay? Which is another reason we have you do the statistical tests, but that's later. So the bias so we call it researcher bias. I want this to come out the way I want it to come out. Or you're changing your proposal. So now, again, are they less disruptive because I read to them, or are they less disruptive because that one kid, we all have them, that one kid that throws off the whole class. I'm sorry, I just realized that I have my microphone on. I don't know if that's going to be any better. So that one kid that throws off the whole class, well, I kicked him out. So yeah, things are going to be better for sure. So that's not ethical. And then, we don't want to harm our students. And I kind of talked about that, I think, in my in my preview, that when I was conducting my study, I was interviewing adults, Army officers who don't get their feelings hurt very easily, right? So it seems silly to me that I even had to consider that I might cause emotional harm of some kind. But as I started researching, doing the literature study on ethics and ethical behavior as a researcher, I saw, yeah, if one of the questions in my survey is, are you, as a result of attending this class, this course, are you a better or more effective communicator? All right. Simple question, yes or no. But if that Army officer has a concern that he's not that effective a communicator, this could set off some spiraling self-belief or a lack of self-efficacy. He could start doubting his ability to effectively communicate. He already wasn't sure about now. I've just gone and reminded him, you're supposed to be an effective communicator. But he's thinking, I don't think I am. Maybe I'm not as intelligent or capable, whatever the feeling is, as I thought I was. And now I'm causing emotional harm. So I have to be aware that that's a possibility. Now, when surveys are online, there's not a lot I can do about it, except phrase my questions so they have a less likely chance of introducing that emotional harm. So instead of saying, as a researcher, I believe you should be a better communicator. Do you believe you are? That's, number one, very biased question. And two, that could absolutely inflict some harm because oh, wow, this doctoral student thinks I should be a better communicator. I don't think I am. Oh, I don't feel good about myself anymore. So we want you to consider those things can absolutely happen, even if you are studying your own students or your own colleagues and you know them very well and they know you. It can still happen. There can still be some harm. So that's why we have you write so much about ethics. I would say, Michael, that there's probably a lot of information about ethics. I don't know why you didn't find much, but ethics is a complex topic, number one, because again, if my survey's online, there's not much I can do. I can't sit there and go, hey, sweetheart, no, don't feel bad. I just asked you if you were an effective communicator. Don't worry about it. I'm not sitting there with that guy. So the best way I can guard against potential harm is to phrase my questions so that they're completely objective. There's no intimation like, you should be a better communicator. Are you? Okay, so I don't want to phrase my questions that way. But I think there's more information than you might realize. Certainly the Belmont report, that's the big one that everybody uses, which is fine, because even in 1979, that's an example of using an older resource that's still valid. So, we generally say don't use studies, or if you use a study that's more than 8 years old, have something to complement. So if you use something from 2004, find something in the last 5 to 8 years that at least sort of either complements or supports the findings. And that's obviously not true with John Dewey, Howard Gardner, Maslow's theory, McTighe, right? Those guys, well, I mean, their research, but their writing is still absolutely valid. John Dewey 100 years later. But research, so I did research on my students and this is how it came out. Can somebody do a a comms check for me because I'm looking at Shibu and he's not able to get in, and I want to make sure y'all can hear me. Michael, can you hear me? Anyone? Michael, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, have you been able to hear me all this time?
Yes,
Okay,
I am.
okay. Okay, so maybe it's just Shibu. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Oh, where was I? What was I talking about?
I think you just mentioned that we just have to find the research that will support
Right,
the
right. Thank you.
findings that are not over than 8 years old.
Right. But again, that's kind of relative. If you find a study that was conducted in 2004 that says student-centered teaching is, more effective, there are lots of studies that concur with them. And, you don't necessarily need to find one because there are, excuse me, that is well known in the education community. But if you find a study that says, boys are more fond of math and science than girls, it's fine when it supports that because I don't think that's true. Maybe it is, but that's some old research, and that's 20 years ago, and things have changed. Kids have changed. Perspectives have changed, right? So the Belmont report is 1979, 40 years old, 45 years old, still completely valid. So, Michael, I don't know if you found the Belmont report, but that's a good one. And Lynn, like I say, any university is going to have lots of information for their master's and doctoral students about ethics during research. So really, you don't need to quote so much authority. I need to know your plan. How are you, Michael, going to make sure that you're ethical? And how do you know you're being ethical? That's when you need the research. That's when you need the sources to tell you this is ethical and this is not.
Okay, I get you. Mm, mhm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but I think the important thing is just, again, like I did, I assumed I was going to be ethical because I'm me and I'm an ethical person. Okay, well, yeah, but I'm not a researcher. I'm not or at that time, well, maybe not. But anyway, at that time, I was not an experienced researcher. So I could have accidentally caused harm. One of y'all could accidentally cause harm, not meaning to, just because you didn't know what might possibly cause harm. So that's why researchers put so much emphasis. I mean, any valid study you read, you're going to read about how they protected their participants.
Okay.
And I think the big one is probably bias, because as a teacher, I've seen so much work, so many things work, and I know this is going to work. I just got to prove it to you. Okay, that's bias right there. I want to prove this works. I've seen some study titles that are, for example, the effectiveness of reading to students after recess. Okay, right there. That's bias. I'm going to prove to you that this is an effective strategy. Okay, so how do we take out the bias from that title? Instead of the effectiveness of reading to your students after recess, we might say the impact of reading to students after recess. And then that's when those statistical tests come in. And we say, and if we say, oh, look, fewer disruptions. Okay, let's run some analysis. What's the correlation between the number of disruptions before and the number of disruptions after? And is it really connected to reading after recess? Or is it different time of year? So it was hot, so, or, you know, it was nice, cool weather, it was Christmas time, so there were lots of disruptions. And now we're back from winter break, and the students are sleepy and cold, so there are fewer disruptions. Look, it worked. No, not necessarily. Maybe, but not necessarily. So I think that's the one I focus the most on is that bias. Are you designing your study so that it's going to turn out the way you want it to turn out? I don't know about Shibu. Oh, is it going to come in? Nope. Oh, we got, oh, Hadia, that's it. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Shibu doesn't seem to be able to get in. There's Hadia. Yeah, I don't know. Hello, Hadia. There's Shibu. Finally, you made it. All right. I don't know why it wouldn't let you in for a long time. All right, so Hadia, Shibu, we were just talking about finding information on ethics, ethical behavior, and why we focus so much on that topic. So,
okay, hi everyone. All right, I'll join in whatever you guys are discussing since I got late a little bit. Good morning to you and good evening to others because it's around 8 p.m. at my side. So I will just listen. If I have any query or question, I'll join in. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think I talked Michael's ear off about ethics, but I just kind of went into, you know, why we're so cautious when doing research, so that we don't cause that harm, or we don't cause our results to be skewed. But anybody else, Sibangili, Hadia, anything y'all want to talk about? Shibu?
No, I think what I wanted to ask, I think you clarified it, you know, on an issue of references there upon the findings of the study. So I think that was clear for me. But then should there be anything else, I'll just definitely say it out.
Yeah, so again, to reiterate, we're talking about when we use resources that are older than 5 to 8 years. So I guess you can think about it when you come across something, say from 2004, and it's a research study, and it gives you information that, or findings that are not either not in the mainstream, or, and you haven't heard of that. Okay, so if they say, hey, here's this new technique that we found that works. Okay, so Everhart, you're working on that right now. Okay, so she's doing finger spelling, I think, for color words. And I never heard of that. I don't teach young, what do you call it, early childhood, but I've never heard of finger spelling. She says it worked, but she's a doctoral candidate at that point, and I've never heard I've never seen that in a teacher resource, a teacher's guide, teacher's manual. I'll find something else that talks about that before I say, there, see, she's right. it works because that's just not mainstream. It's not invalid because it's 20 years old, but it can't really stand alone because it's not common knowledge that other researchers have found through the years. So again, they might be valid findings, but I haven't heard anybody else talk about fingerspelling. So I'm going to do some research because it sounds good. I might want to try it, but I don't want to waste my time if it's not effective. So I'm going to go out and see if I can find anybody else talking about fingerspelling. Because again, that study is 20 years old. Now, if I find a study from 2004 that talks about student-centered classrooms and that they are more effective for discovery learning, yeah, you know what? There's been a lot of research since then that agrees, so I can use that source. So Everhart's study, if you found something from 2018 that agreed with Everhart, you would use both. You would say as cited in, or you just, Everhart said it and Wolf said it. Because Wolf is a newer study and they support each other. Because Wolf by themselves also isn't of great value because nobody else is saying this. But these two together, an older one and a more recent one, are fine unless they disagree with common knowledge. So if the idea out there is like, look, teachers, don't ever fingerspell with your students. It's terrible. That's common knowledge. And so you would say, Everhart, I don't believe you, Wolf, sorry. But if there's nothing else out there that contradicts Everhart and Wolf, go ahead and use them. But when we talk about the Belmont report, 40 years old, John Dewey, 100 years old, Howard Gardner, back in the 80s, Daniel McTighe, back in the 90s, still valuable sources. You don't need a newer source because what they are saying has been pretty well proven in the education community. So even though their writings are old, that's okay. They're still valuable because they are supported by common knowledge. That's kind of a judgment call. I also want to talk about peer-reviewed, and I may be like the only person that's ever said this, but I did a little mini literature review on, well, one literature review, literature study on the concept of peer-reviewed writing, because I submitted an article for peer review and it came back rejected from the journal because it was peer reviewed and it was rejected. And so I just happened to cross this article about that peer review doesn't, maybe I saw it on PBS or I saw it, now I'm thinking maybe I initially saw the topic on a reputable show, like maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson or something like that. But anyway, the idea was that peer review doesn't necessarily mean that what you wrote is valid or invalid. It just means that those peer reviewers accepted what you wrote. And the context of this was talking about, hold on, I gotta move my stuff really. Get hung up on here. Okay, so hold on. That I know I was talking about peer review. So those generally it's 2 or 3 peers that read your article agree with you. That doesn't necessarily mean they're right. And this was written in a context of, I believe, a scientific study that was conducted, and it was talking about. I know it was in a journal. That's where I read it. That's right. And it was that peer reviews can be very skewed because when an article is accepted, sometimes authors have to pay for that peer review. So the magazine or the journal wants the money for the peer review, so they accept the study, and then the author has to pay for the peer review. Or the studies are supposed to be blind, but if I'm in a research community where I'm researching this one thing and everybody knows I'm researching it, and the peer reviewers start to read it and they're like, oh man, this is Jennifer Wolf. We don't like her. We're not going to accept her study. So peer review doesn't mean all that it conjures up, like, ooh, peer review. That means more than just the writer accepted the information. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's any better. That just means those peers who read that article accepted it for whatever reason. Maybe they like me, so they want to accept my work. So I don't limit my results to peer reviewed because that's my persuasion, is that peer review doesn't mean all it's meant to be. But if you have an instructor, so I'm not going to have, I don't enforce any requirements for peer review, but if you're in 5470 and your 5910 instructor only wants you to use peer reviewed results, that's fine. It's probably not as dysfunctional a system as I'm making it out to be, because peer review has been around forever, and for most, I would say all journals, they're not going to get published without a peer review unless it's self-published. So it probably is a valid activity, but again, if something is not accepted or not peer reviewed, it doesn't mean it's wrong. Now, there can be some screwy research out there. Okay, so you have to read particularly the abstract and then start to read their research procedure. Did they do what sounds like genuine, authentic, evidence-based, rules-based research? If you're reading it, you're like, I wasn't allowed to do that in my study. Probably not valuable, but that's not because it's not peer reviewed. It's because it's pseudoscience. So don't get hung up on the peer reviewed, but again, if you have an instructor, maybe even if you get out there and you want to publish someday, you might want to use only peer-reviewed resources just to be safe that you'll get published. And maybe that's why I wasn't published. I don't know, because mine was just a literature review. Actually, I wrote 2 articles, neither one of them. The second one, boy, those peers were rough. I mean, they criticized my writing style, not my information. So there you go. Anyway, I've been published since, but those first 2 are full. So what else? let's see, 5910. You're over the hump. You're on the downhill side. 4 weeks, right? You'll be a graduate. So yeah, you have to apply for research. So, apply for graduation, 5910. So after the grade book closes, so, excuse me, goodness, I will send an email in at the start, well, yeah, like at the start of Unit 8 and say, hey, get your stuff to me as soon as possible because I will grade it. I take off from work so I can grade papers, quick turnaround. Because if there are changes you need to make, I don't want to hold you up on graduation. I have done that. Last term, I had 3 students that I had to delay their graduation because their studies weren't complete, not meet my standard. And then I've had a couple students fail because they didn't make changes until after I closed the grade book. I said, send this email. I go, hey, you have until, Sunday at 3 p.m. UO People time to get me your completed study. They didn't do it. I closed the grade book. It's too late. I can't request an incomplete for you at that point. I have to do that before I close the grade book. So you'll see an email at the start of Unit 8 that says, hey, students, get me your stuff. And then on Saturday, 2 days before, so the grade book, the course ends on Thursday. And then on Saturday, I send out an email. Okay, all grading is complete. Please check your grades. If you see anything off, let me know. And because I try to close the grade book on Sunday because it has to be closed Monday and I don't want to be late because we get in really bad trouble if our grades are late. So 5910, you will see that coming from me. And then 5470, you'll see it as well, but it's not as critical for you because you'll go into 5910 and finish up whatever it is you didn't finish. So, but for 5910, they will graduate late. But on that, if everything's good, you have, after grades are published, then you go in to the student portal, not the online campus. You go into the student portal, and there's a little thing that says apply for graduation. So, but it takes a little bit. Because even if I turn in the grade book on Sunday, it's about 2 weeks for them to reconcile all the grades. So they don't do just Jennifer Wolf's class, they do all the MED program grades. They have to verify. I can't think of the word. They have to verify because if I as an instructor come in, wait, I did something wrong with Sib and Gilly's grade. Can you open up the grade book? But they can only do that until grades are published. So it's a couple weeks of making sure everything is right. And then you can apply. Yeah, Hadia.
Okay, I have a quick question. For a report, the literature review, I have to only find, I have given the references for the last 5 years only, not pretty older, because my research is basically on neuroscience, right? So the brain development and all that. So my question is, it's okay if I just give references to the literature which is already been published and which was peer reviewed by other people as well, and just give reference if it's in favor of my research, have the same kind of content, and they believe in my intervention, or they are against it. Both the things are fine, or is it going to be something which supports only my research, the concept that I want, and using the same interventions?
Great question. If you, I'm going to say quoted, not necessarily, if you used information from a source in your paper, you have to cite and reference. No matter how old they are, no matter whether they agree, and really you should actively have sought out sources who disagree with you. Not everybody does that, but you really should, because if I'm only looking for people who agree with me, I'm biased. Right there, my study's biased. Because nope, I'm not going to listen to any other viewpoint. I know this is going to work. And you've got someone out there shouting at you, it doesn't work. You need to consider that voice, and you need to use them in your literature review and say, Wolf said reading to students is effective. On the other hand, Said said it's not. Here's where their studies were aligned differently. So maybe Said got results that I didn't because they did something a little differently. And that's fine. And it shows objective perspective, objective searching for someone who disagrees with you. So in your references should be, if you read Said and he disagreed with you, or they disagreed with you, and you go, I'm not going to put that in my paper, that's unethical. But if that was a decision you made, you have no reason to cite and reference because it's not in your paper. It should be in your paper, but it's not. So any source you used in your paper should be cited and referenced, no matter how old it is, no matter whether it agrees, no matter whether it supports you. It should be in your study, or it should be cited and referenced. Is that the question?
Yeah. More or less, I understand. So if somebody who does not agree with me and they are like not agreeing to my intervention, or they think that it wasn't such a good option to use those kind of strategies, isn't it gonna impact my final result of the report, my paper? Okay.
Maybe not. I mean, it depends on how you come out. If Wolf agrees with you and Said does not, and you put both of us in your paper, which is honest, right? You're telling the reader, hey, I know there are sources who disagree with me, but I'm still going to use this intervention. Then the reader's like, okay, she's objective, and I appreciate that. And then what Said says should not impact your results. They're your results. Said was not at your location. That's the thing about applied research. It's unique to your location. So now if Said is a fellow teacher at the same school, and they tried something and they said, hey, Hadia, this is not going to work. You're like, I'm going to do it anyway. That's still fine. I mean, you don't have to listen to everybody, right? So they should not have any impact on your outcomes unless you use some of their design. Maybe if Michael did the same thing you did, but he tweaked it a little bit, and you said, and then his results came out differently. And you said, okay, well, I'll do what Michael did. That would impact your results, but not just Michael saying something different.
Yeah, because my people who are part of my research, the ones who I'm targeting, or my audience for the research, all the students and all the teachers, of course, nobody else is using the same set of people, right? So the result is going to be different. Each person is unique. Everybody has their own point of view. For that is why I think most of my research is, I'm going to use mostly quantitative data, because that gives exact impression if it's in my favor or not. Qualitative is perspective. It's like point, and it's very it's debatable. You know what I mean?
True. And so that's why qualitative research really was not valued until about the 80s, because data scientists said, you're taking somebody's perspective. That's not objective. Anybody can say anything. So we had to put these rules. This is why schools are so intent on you understanding how to do research, because you want to be able to say, my qualitative findings are valid. They back up what the quantitative data say. Yeah, quantitative data, you can skew it if you don't do your statistical analysis correctly. You can make your data, you could say, hey, I read the students after recess, and then the frequency of disruptive behavior dropped. There you go. Okay, well, you didn't do any statistical analysis. And teachers do that every day. If I read, somebody, I think in 5910 is doing a study on repeated reading. And so their hypothesis is repeated reading leads to greater fluency. Maybe. It sounds like it would, but maybe the reader is more fluent. Yeah, because they've read something several times, but does that mean they're going to be more fluent when they pick up a different book? And that might be where your qualitative data come in and say, why do you think, little Sim and Gilly, why do you think you read faster? Well, because now I like to read because I'm more fluent. Okay, that's legitimate. But if I don't have that qualitative data, I don't know why she read faster. I just know she did. So that's the value of qualitative data, is it gives you the why. I got these results, they're objective, I did my statistical analysis, they're valid, but I'm not quite sure what worked because I didn't ask. What do you think, little Mikey? Why do you think you're reading faster? So quantitative data is not in and of itself more objective. It's just numbers. But, there's an old saying, 85% of all statistics are made up. Okay. The point to that joke is you can make your data say anything if you work hard enough or if you don't work hard enough. So by themselves, data are just data. We are the ones that interpret them to say, look, this thing worked. But that's where your t-test and your p-test, your correlation come in to prove, yes, Padilla said.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dr. Wolf, another thing, like when I'm writing all the findings in my final report, the open-ended questions, they're usually answered in they're pretty big, right? Paragraphs or maybe conversation or dialogue between teachers or students. So am I going to write the whole thing or just a point of view of what they wanted to say?
So that's your qualitative analysis. And the way you do that is with thematic coding. So now in my dissertation, I had to include all 167 comments. That's okay. I don't need that from you. What I need from you is you'll put in your paper, maybe 3, so say you're writing your section on what book you read, whatever. And you take 2 or 3 comments, kid A said they really like that story. Kid B says they like to calm down. Kid C said, and so you'll give 2 or 3 little samples of comments that support what you're telling the reader, which might be kids like to be read to. And then you, as part of your analysis, will take all those comments and try to figure out, okay, I've got 30 comments. What are these saying? And you come up with 3 to 5 themes. Okay, these comments are saying something about reading helps me calm down. So that's one theme, calming effect. The second theme might be, well, these comments are saying that reading causes people to feel a common story. We're all invested in this story. Every kid in here is waiting to find out what's going to happen to little Fluffy the kitten. Okay, so all these are saying common story. Okay, so now I have my themes: calming effect and common story, and I hope y'all can understand my accent. And then a third theme might be soothing voice. So a couple of the kids said they liked the sound of my voice, and a couple other kids said they like to be read to. Okay, so that theme is pleasurable voices. So that adds, so then when you say there's fewer or decreased frequency of disruptive behavior, the reason for that is its calming effect. That's what I saw in all these comments. There's a calming effect to being read to. So those qualitative comments now support your numbers that said, yeah, it seems like it worked, but I don't know why. Does it matter what book I read? Maybe I should read at a different time of day. No, because I have this qualitative data that where students said they like to calm down after recess. Okay, so don't change when you read. But if you just had numbers, you wouldn't know why the thing worked. You just know that it did. So what you're doing with those qualitative comments are you're putting them into kind of buckets. This bucket is calms me down. This bucket is soothing voice. This bucket is I like stories. And I think I have in the course forum, I guess I could look, a resources for all over. So if I look at you sideways, that's why. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I have a book because the book I read is out of print, but it was very helpful for qualitative coding or thematic coding. That's qualitative coding because you assign codes to these comments and then you can link and then you can see patterns. So you take one comment and you make it calm. That's the code, calm. And then you read some more. Oh, there's another one, calm. And so then you bucket all those comments that you said related to being calm. And that's one thing. And you'll see what I mean. So let me see if resources. Sure. Okay, there's an article on qualitative analysis. Well, that's an article. I could have swore. Okay, let me keep looking. Because I thought I had a book for qualitative analysis. It's an announcement. Oh, quantitative and qualitative analysis resources. Okay, quantitative, qualitative. Okay, there's a video. Okay. Maybe that book's out of print. Also, shouldn't be. Well, if you go into Learn Library, and well, I don't have it. I'm gonna have to look that back up because it was a good book. Anyway, go into eBook Central and type in qualitative coding, something like, or yeah, qualitative coding or qualitative analysis. But anyway, I'm going to try to find that book because I used to have it in the resources, and it will walk you step by step how you take all the comments you have and then you assign them a code. So like A, B, C, D, only your code is calm, soothing, pleasant, whatever. And then at the end, you take all those comments that are coded calm and you put them into one bucket. But I don't need every single comment.
And do we need to put that? Yeah, do we need to put that bucket in the appendix down?
You will call it a theme. So yes, in a table, you will put first theme is pleasant voices or pleasant. And then you'll say 2 or 3 comments that relate to pleasant. And then you'll say calming effect. And you'll take 2 or 3 comments that get to calming effect. So it's just a sample to show the reader, yeah, I'm not just making this up. I really do have comments that say being read to is soothing, or they like pleasant voices. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So-
I got it. Not that difficult. Do we need to hyperlink those things or just cite them the regularly we do it?
Oh, you talking about the comments?
Yeah,
Yeah, so what you're going
like
to
the
do,
calming. Yeah,
Yeah,
like for example, if I use calm, the please see calm in this table or whatever in the appendix. And do I need to hyperlink it because it will be in a PDF form anyway, or it's just simple cited that it's available, all the comments that refer to that calm, adverb, just go and see all the comments down below.
yeah, so I'm going to, I thought I was going to pull up my dissertation just to give you where in the world? Well, I better not lost that sucker. So you don't reference. Let me just show you now, Word document. You don't have to hyperlink or reference your comments. Okay, so you're going to do this. Okay, so you should be able to see a Word document. Okay, so you're going to go like this. You're going to say, student A said, Drew Wolf's voice calms. Oops. Can everybody see that? I'll make it bigger for you. Everybody see that Word document?
Yeah,
Yes, we can see.
Yes.
This wolf calms me down. Okay, so you're going to go Communication 2024. That's in your writing. Okay, and then student B said, whatever they said. Okay, and then you don't put anything in the reference. Okay, now that's why I really want to show you. So I'll show you a table in APA style. Because you can't just make a table. And I didn't know that, unfortunately. I had to go back and redo all my tables because I didn't know. I didn't know there was a format for tables, sample tables. Okay, so you'll say table 1, thematic coding of qualitative results. And then, let's see. Okay, so here you would put theme or you would put code calm. And then you'd say, and then you'd have the comment here. And then in your third column, you would have the theme, students feel calm after being read to. Okay, so there's so theme, so code, calm. Comment, column 2, I like to be read to because it calms me down. Theme, students feel calm after being read to, okay? Next code, soothing. Comment, Dr. Wolf's voice is soothing. Theme, pleasant voices calm down students. Third theme, whatever you got. So if I could find my darn dissertation, it's not good when you lose your own dissertation in your OneDrive. It's got to be there. And I hate to waste your time. What I might do, I don't know. Sure, have I haven't looked. Also, think what I will try to do for you, Hadia, is take a screenshot once I locate my my study. I'll take a screenshot of how the coding is supposed to look. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm a little bothered that I can't find. Luckily, I have it in print. Anyway. What else? That's, huh. I mean, I don't mind, staying on, but I don't want you to sit here. I know it's late for some of you. I'm just looking for my study. This is where knowledge management comes in. Yes.
I'm sorry. There was another issue that I faced since most of my the kids are the teens, right? Teenagers, adolescents, and they are really moody. So while
What?
filling,
Teenagers are moody? Oh, I don't know about that, but
yeah. So their response at times I felt that they were just like not paying attention and just filling it whatever I've sent them and not responding the way I want them to be. They were like just like a test paper or an exam. They just want to get over with it. That kind of thing. It can create different impact on my result as well. So it is difficult. I couldn't understand what to do at that point.
well,
I kept
so
asking them again and again.
yeah, no. So, any kind of research, medical research. Okay, I want you to take this pill every day and I want you to, cut out sugar. Come back to me in a month. We're going to re-weigh you and see if you lost any weight. You should. So we're going to see. Patient comes back, they've gained 10 pounds. Oh, I did everything you told me to do. I cut out sugar and I took this pill. You can't control for your participants' behavior. So you can, if you were to put in there in your study a limitation, teenagers were my participants and, they are famously hostile or their moods change, inconsistent, but everybody knows that. So, and that's anecdotal at best. You don't have any research that says they weren't paying attention or that says they weren't doing what you just are observing them. And it looks like they're just going, whatever. Maybe they were, or maybe they weren't. But you can't invalidate your results based on what you think you're seeing. Your results are what your results are. And unfortunately, because we can't control for behavior, we have to, that's why we run those correlation tests. And if the result says there's a correlation, then you take it. Because again, what you think you're observing is anecdotal. You're probably right, but it's still what you think you're seeing. And secondly, you can only do what you can do, and you just report what you get. So I understand we want our participants to be honest, and don't you understand the importance of this research, guys? But you can't do that. And that might introduce some bias, because what I, as the reader, I say, you know what? I think I'm going to do what Hadia did. I'm going to replicate that study and see if it works for me. Well, if you tried to influence your students' behavior and your outcomes turn out a certain way, I don't try to influence my student behavior. My outcomes are different. Does that mean it didn't work for me? Or does that mean it really didn't work for you? Because you weren't being honest. You were trying to control your participants. And that is going to introduce bias. Just let it be whatever it is.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, it's like if you're just doing a survey. So, my survey was online and I sent it to 16,357 officers. And I got back 167. Not even 1%. Okay, I take what I get. Now, if I were being paid to conduct that research, it wouldn't have been accepted, because you've got to have about 25%. But I was just doing mine for a study. Also, if I were being paid, I could work a lot harder to get results, right? But so for you, just take what you get, and maybe next year you do it again with a different group of students and you compare the before and after. Or if you really feel like these results aren't valid, put that in your study. That's okay. And just say, hey, a limitation is teenagers were my participants and I didn't always observe them taking things seriously. Either way. But again, that's your opinion. You don't know if they weren't taking it seriously. You just think they weren't.
Yeah, thank you so much. So far, so good. I don't have any other questions. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad you're here, because those were some good ones. And, the 5470 people need to hear it, because they don't know what they're going to run into. I know when I set out, man, I thought I was going to have 16,000, whatever, 132, and it was going to be great. I was going to do all these interviews and find out this great information. Then, bam, COVID hit. So number one, I couldn't do the focus groups. And I only got 167 results. It was a little bit of a damper, but that's okay. It was a great experience. Definitely learned things. I've done another study since, and am fixing to do. We're designing some more now. So I'll be doing them probably in the fall or winter. And, you know, so I will design it better and I'll have better or more appropriate expectations as well. All right, what else? I mean, y'all are on your time, so I'm happy to sit here all day, but I don't want to keep you if you are done.
Oh, thank you so much. I think I got clarity on a few things. And should there be anything, maybe I'll just, is it okay if maybe if I come across any issue, I send an email? Because I
Absolutely.
think so far I'm good. Okay,
Yep.
thank you so much, Doctor.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank
And
you.
Hadia, I will post a screenshot if I can find my study to show you how to do that coding. But in the meantime, I'll also look for the book I found that I liked, and I'll put that in the course form. I better write that down too. All right. Anything else?
Not really on my side.
Okay, Michael.
Okay.
Let me know if anything does come up. Of course, I'm here.
Okay. Okay then, probably. So, bye for now.
Okay, have a good night.
Okay, bye.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr.
Oh, you're welcome.
Bose.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye from
Have a
my
good
side
night.
as well. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, I'm not sure if it's Shibu or Shabu, so do you have anything you need from me? Do you have anything you need? Any questions? Okay, so I don't know if you can hear me.